Have you ever woken up in the morning, looked into the mirror, and seen a pair of tired eyes staring back at you? Not the kind of tiredness that comes from a sleepless night or a long week at work, but a deeper exhaustion, quiet, heavy, as if a part of you has quietly burned out. You still make your favorite cup of coffee. You still get ready for another day. You're still the one everyone counts on. But somewhere in the back of your mind, a single question keeps whispering, am I really living my own life or someone else's? That hollow feeling isn't easy to explain. It sneaks into the quietest moments, even when you're curled up on the sofa, watching Netflix, trying to convince yourself you're okay. You've spent so much of your energy soothing, listening, understanding, and making sure everyone else is fine. You're the one who offers a shoulder, the one who always knows the right words, the one who never says no, no matter how drained you are. You're kind, always kind, but that kindness sometimes feels like a heavy mask you've been wearing for years. It hides a truth you've been afraid to admit. You are exhausted from putting everyone else's needs above your own. If you're an empath, you probably recognize yourself in these words. You've been wired to feel others so deeply that somewhere along the way, you forgot yourself. You carry your best friend's sadness, your coworker's stress, even the quiet disappointment of a stranger in the grocery store line. Their energy becomes your energy, their feelings, your feelings, and you with your tender heart keep trying to fix it all. You learn to be agreeable, to be easy to love, to be accepted. And this isn't your fault. It's a survival pattern built long ago, maybe in a childhood home where safety felt uncertain, where you had to be good to avoid conflict, or simply to be noticed at all. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." And those words echo so deeply for anyone who's been trapped in the cycle of people-pleasing. You think this is who you are, that this is the only way to live, but maybe it's not who you are. Maybe it's just an old script, a script written by wounds you didn't ask for, a script built on a quiet fear that if you stop giving, you'll stop being loved. But can you see what this constant giving away of yourself has done? Every time you silence your needs, you build an invisible wall around your soul. You dim your own light, and no one else may notice, but you do. You can't truly awaken while living in fear of rejection, fear of disappointing others, fear of simply saying, I can't. Spiritual awakening isn't about finding something new outside of you. It's about peeling away all the layers, the masks, the expectations, until you finally see and embrace the wild, unpolished, and beautifully real self that's been waiting underneath. That bone-deep exhaustion you feel, it isn't just physical. It's your soul crying out for you. It's the quiet, sacred signal that it's time. Time to set boundaries. Time to say no without guilt. Time to choose yourself not from selfishness, but from a love that is finally yours. Because constantly pleasing everyone else doesn't make you better. It just makes you disappear in your own story. And you feel it, you know it. Somewhere deep inside you can sense her, that powerful, unapologetic version of you, who doesn't need anyone's approval to feel whole. The moment you admit this truth, everything begins to shift. So this morning, as you hold that warm cup of coffee in your hands, whisper it to yourself, I'm tired. I can't keep pleasing everyone. And I don't have to. When you let that truth land, even if only in your own heart, a small door opens. A single ray of light slips into the darkest part of you. And if you're feeling it now, if these words are stirring something in you, this is not an accident. This is an invitation to step into a new chapter 1 where you no longer have to trade your soul for acceptance. Because from this morning forward, you begin to learn what it means to love yourself first. If you feel seen right now, leave a comment below. Write it as a promise to yourself. Today, I choose me. And if you know someone who needs this, another empath who's been running on empty, send them this video. This might be the morning you both remember what it feels like to shine again. And don't forget to hit subscribe and turn on notifications, because in the next chapters, we're going even deeper. We'll uncover why you've been living for others and how to finally gently come back home to you. Because here's the truth you've never been told. The one person who's been needing your love the most has always been you. If you're still here, I know you feel it. That invisible weight we spoke of. It's not just temporary exhaustion. It's the price your soul has been paying every time you put everyone else's needs before your own. Picture this. Every time you nod yes when your heart screams no. Every time you smile when all you want is to cry. Every time you swallow your anger or bury your disappointment, you lose a small piece of yourself. Those pieces don't vanish. They retreat. They sink deep into the hidden corners of your psyche, forming what Carl Jung called the shadow, the forgotten, denied parts of you. Jung spoke of the shadow self not as something evil, but as the unacknowledged parts of our being. Anger, vulnerability, selfish desires, the need for attention, and even the deepest cravings we never dare to admit. For an empath, this shadow is often where unspoken anger hides, where exhaustion lives, and where a quiet inner voice keeps whispering no, but is never allowed to be heard. Every time you force yourself to please everyone, you unconsciously tell yourself, my feelings don't matter as much as everyone else's comfort. This is how the cycle begins. You reject your own emotions. They don't disappear, they simply slip into the shadow, and from there, they begin to create chaos. Maybe you've noticed it snapping at small things, feeling sudden waves of emptiness, or carrying a dull sense of numbness. That's your shadow trying to speak. It's been silent for too long. Think of your energy like a water jar. Every time you give without receiving, the jar empties a little more. And for an empath, it drains fast, not only because you give, but because you also absorb the emotional weight of others. When you set boundaries, you don't just protect your energy, you create space for it to refill. But how can you refill it if you've forgotten what you even need? If you've been too afraid to ask for it, the cost of people-pleasing isn't only exhaustion. It's the slow erosion of your inner compass. When you live for approval, you stop trusting yourself. You stop hearing your own intuition. You no longer know what you want to eat, wear, or do without first asking someone else. And this is the greatest barrier to spiritual awakening. Awakening isn't about adding something new, it's about returning to yourself, to the quiet wisdom within you. But if you've silenced that voice because you fear disappointing others, how can you hear the whispers of your own soul? Here's a hard but liberating truth. Not everyone will like you when you start setting boundaries. Some people are so used to your endless yes that when you finally say no, they will resist. They may call you selfish, difficult, or claim you've changed. But remember, those reactions don't define you. They reveal how dependent they've become on the energy you've been pouring out. And that's not yours to fix. Embracing your shadow, your anger, your sadness, your unmet needs is not selfish. It's an act of radical self-love. It's declaring to the universe, I deserve to live fully. I am allowed to be whole, not just the pieces of me that are convenient for others. When you allow yourself to be real, to feel everything, even the unacceptable parts, you finally begin the true path of spiritual awakening. Because awakening isn't about becoming perfect. It's about becoming whole. This journey demands courage. Courage to face your old wounds, courage to stand in front of your fears, and courage to believe that saying no won't leave you unloved. It will lead you to the kind of love that sees you, all of you, and stays. And that, my friend, is where freedom begins. Do you feel it? That quiet but undeniable truth that you can't keep living the way you always have? It's not a conscious decision, it's a collapse from within, a breaking point where the old you can no longer hold. There comes a moment when you look in the mirror and no longer recognize yourself. Not because you've changed too fast, but because you've been such a skilled actor wearing too many roles for too long that your real face is buried under masks of pleasant kind and always available. You still go to work, you still smile at friends, you are still the loving mother, the supportive wife, the sweet colleague. But deep down there's a crack forming, and it's widening. You may not call it an awakening at first. All you know is this: the things that once brought you joy feel empty. Your old hobbies no longer excite you. The comfortable relationships around you now feel shallow. Small talk exhausts you instead of filling you. And there's a sadness, a persistent nameless heaviness like a gray cloud hanging over your heart. You start craving something you can't quite name. A deep breath, a life that feels real, a chance to put down the invisible weight you've been carrying for years. It feels as if you are standing in what I call a psychic hallway. Behind you, the old doors have slammed shut. Ahead of you, the new doors haven't appeared yet. You are suspended in between, untethered, no longer belonging to who you once were, but not yet knowing who you are becoming. And this is where the soul begins to scream, not in words, but in unmistakable signs, a sense of deep disorientation, vivid, chaotic dreams. Exhaustion that no amount of sleep can fix. And that haunting thought, I'm living someone else's life. This is the breaking point, the place where every role you've been playing starts to fall apart, where the good person inside you begins to question the cost of endless self-sacrifice. Carl Jung called this moment the confrontation with the shadow. The shadow isn't a monster. It's every part of you that you've pushed down in order to be loved. For an empath, this shadow holds unspoken anger, unmet needs, and the selfish desires you were taught to be ashamed of. It is the voice inside you that's been silenced for too long. And now it's shouting, I need to be loved, not because I make everyone else comfortable. I need rest. I have limits. I exist too. Awakening is not gentle. It's not the sunlit, peaceful morning you might imagine. It's more like being cast out into a barren desert, stripped of every illusion, every role, every safe little box that once kept you contained. You might feel anger at yourself for allowing this for so long, anger at the world for taking advantage of your kindness. You might feel grief mourning the years you spent abandoning yourself. You might feel terrifying emptiness because without your old roles, you don't know who you are anymore. But here's the truth. This emptiness is a sign of life. It means you are no longer willing to live on autopilot. You are finally hearing the true call of your soul, the one that's been there all along, waiting for you to listen. Jeff Brown once wrote, "True spiritual awakening isn't about becoming more spiritual. It's about becoming more real." And this is where it begins. This is when you start asking questions that change everything. Why am I always the one who understands me? Why am I always the listener who listens to me? Why am I always the giver who gives to me? And from these questions, a new part of you rises. The part that dares to say no. The untamed, unapologetic part that no longer needs permission to be free. The part that knows its worth, even if nobody else applauds it. In the darkness of this hallway, light doesn't come from the outside. It comes from within when you whisper to yourself, who am I if I'm no longer the one who keeps everyone else happy? Don't rush. Don't run back to the old life just because the emptiness scares you. This emptiness is not a void. It's a cleansing. It's the soul clearing out the debris to make room for something real. Stay here. Breathe here. Trust that this collapse is not the end. It is the clearing before the beginning. Because from here, you will rise with boundaries, with light, with truth, and most of all, with your wholeness. And in this very moment, your soul begins to speak. It's not asking politely anymore. It's reclaiming what's always been yours. You've entered a point of no return. The old you, the agreeable one, the self-sacrificing one, the one who was always so nice, no longer fits. It's like wearing a heavy winter coat in the middle of summer. You feel restless, itchy, uncomfortable deep inside yourself. Not because something is wrong, but because something is about to be born. The ancient symbol of the snake is your mirror now. A snake doesn't shed its skin in comfort. It rubs against rough surfaces, it hides in darkness, it bleeds if it must, until the old suffocating layer finally splits and falls away. True transformation isn't a flash of light. It's friction. It's disorientation. It's the silent chaos of becoming someone new. During this phase, you may feel lost. Old connections may weaken. Friends, family, even colleagues might not recognize this version of you, or worse, they might feel threatened by it. You may no longer know who you are without your old roles to anchor you. But hear this, what you are losing was never truly yours. They were burdens you carried to keep the peace. There will be days when you ache to go back, to be the sweet one again. Because saying no feels lonely. Because silence feels heavier than words. Because people who once loved you when you were always available won't know how to handle you when you stop being their comfort. And yes, you'll feel guilty. Guilty for not replying immediately. Guilty for choosing rest over rescue. Guilty for no longer smiling when you want to cry. But this is the price of rebirth. You cannot live in truth and still be loved by everyone. You cannot keep the world happy and keep your soul whole. You must choose. This is where a sacred ritual begins, one that doesn't happen in temples, but in the quiet corners of your own life. You'll feel old relationships fracture. Habits that once defined you will lose their meaning. Even the places that once felt safe may suddenly feel too small. You are no longer who you used to be, and that's terrifying. But in the barren desert of this transformation, a seed is beginning to grow. You can't see it yet, but each time you say no without apology, each time you sit in silence instead of explaining yourself, each time you refuse to carry someone else's emotions, you peel off another layer of dead skin. You create room for your soul to breathe, and then it happens. Truth doesn't feel soft, but it feels freeing. No more pretending, no more endless giving, no more asking for permission to be yourself. Only stillness. And in that stillness, you hear yourself for the first time. Shedding is not about improving your image. It's about releasing the false selves you built to survive. It's about standing naked, raw, and unafraid in front of your own reflection. One day, you will sit in your quiet room. No messages to answer, no applause, no demands, just you. And you'll realize, finally, I am home. I am with myself. I do not need to please anyone to be worthy of breathing. The snake never crawls back into its old skin, and neither will you. You've walked through the wilderness of change. Now you emerge steadier, stronger, and profoundly whole in a way you've never known before. From the ashes of the old, you will build something sacred, a life rooted in truth, in boundaries, in quiet strength. And then you may begin to wonder who will walk beside you. When you are no longer who you used to be, the answer will come, and it will change everything. You've walked through fire. You've shed your old skin painfully and alone. And now, from the ashes of what once was something miraculous is beginning to bloom. The constant exhaustion that used to weigh on you, it's fading. In its place, clarity. You no longer nod along to everything just to keep the peace. You no longer rush to understand at the cost of draining yourself dry. You no longer feel the need to explain why you went silent, why you walked away, or why you stopped carrying what was never yours. This is the moment you learn a new language, not one spoken with words, but with energy, presence, and unshakable truth, the language of boundaries. Boundaries are not walls built to keep people out. Think of them as sacred prayers, a quiet declaration to the universe and everyone around you. I know who I am. I know what wounds me. I know what nourishes me. And I will guard this space as holy ground where my soul can be safe and grow. Boundaries are not selfish. They are acts of radical self-love. They are the way you honor your worth. And as you learn this language, a powerful archetype awakens within you, the spiritual warrior. But this is not a warrior who fights with swords or anger. This is the one who stands firm in silence when needed, who walks away without fear when their soul is not respected, who no longer bleeds out their energy to earn love. This warrior doesn't fight against people. They fight for themselves, for the wholeness of their spirit. Setting boundaries isn't selfishness, it's initiation. It's the ceremony that says, I am worthy of respect. I am no longer dissolving myself just to be loved. I am done being the nice one just to belong. You begin to see it clearly now. The things you once called normal were the very things that drained you. The endless phone calls where you were the listener but never heard. The messages demanding your presence at all hours. The obligations you accepted just to avoid rejection or judgment. Now you begin to say, I can't do that right now. I need time for myself. I don't want to continue this conversation. I'm not comfortable with this. And then something unexpected happens. No one dies. The world doesn't collapse. Yes, some people may be upset. Some may pull away. But you remain. You are intact. and you are stronger than ever. Imagine yourself as a sacred temple, pure, luminous, untouchable. No one enters unless they lay down their weapons, step in reverence, and meet you with respect. Boundaries are not loud speeches or long explanations. They are quiet energy. They are the stillness of someone who no longer fears being disliked for being real. They are the calm strength of a person who finally knows their worth. And along this path, you learn no one has the right to demand your energy. You are not responsible for rescuing anyone. Love is not self-erasure. True love is reciprocal, respectful, and soul-deep. Carl Jung spoke of individuation, the process of becoming your whole, undivided self. Boundaries are part of that journey. Each line you draw is not rejection. It is reclamation. You are no longer an extension of others. You are your own being complete. One day someone will ask, "Why have you changed?" And you will smile and say, "I didn't change. I just came home to myself." And from this place of power, you begin to draw your circles. Boundaries with parents, where you stop playing the perfect child and start being an adult with your own voice. Boundaries with friends, where you stop being their unpaid therapist and start protecting your energy. Boundaries with lovers, where love must honor the real you, not just the version they prefer. And most of all, boundaries with yourself, where you refuse to repeat the cycles of self-abandonment. This is the strength of someone who has been broken and rebuilt. This is awakening, not dramatic, not loud, but steady, holy, and real. The spiritual warrior doesn't win battles in the outer world. They win the only battle that matters, the one within. Boundaries are your sacred circle. Inside that circle, you are whole. Inside that circle, you need no permission to simply be. You've given yourself the key to freedom and inner peace. And now perhaps you feel it too. A power has awakened in you, a strength that was always there waiting for this very moment. Shall we see where it leads? After the breaking, after the long nights of staring into the shadows of your own soul, after the boundaries carved out with tears and sacred clarity, something extraordinary begins to happen. You start to hear it. A voice, not loud, not harsh, not demanding, but soft like the sound of wind through an open window. And yet it holds enough power to make you stop and listen. Don't go there anymore. This person doesn't match your energy. This isn't in alignment with your values. Enough. Stop. This is not the voice of fear, not the voice of overthinking. It is the quiet wisdom of intuition, the voice of the silent oracle within you. Carl Jung once said, "Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakens." And after everything, you are awakening. You no longer need to become someone. You only need to remember who you are. You remember the nudges you once ignored to keep the peace. You remember the subtle warnings you silenced to avoid conflict. You remember the times you just knew something was off and you were right. Before you needed proof, you needed logic, you needed the validation of others. But now you don't. You have lived enough to know your intuition is not a whisper to be doubted. It is the voice of your soul, and you can finally trust it. How to hear the silent oracle more clearly. Sit in silence. Silence is not nothingness. Silence is presence. Each morning before the world floods in, before you reach for your phone, sit for a few moments and ask, what does my energy need today? What truth must I honor today? Listen not with your head, but with your heart. Write your intuition down. Keep an oracle journal, a sacred place to record every nudge, every feeling, every passing insight. Not perfect, not polished, just real. Writing turns the invisible into something you can see, something that grows stronger the more you honor it. Listen to your body. Your intuition doesn't only live in your mind, it lives in your chest, your gut, your skin. Do you feel heavy around someone? Do you feel an unexplainable peace near another? Do you feel drained after certain conversations? That's the oracle speaking. That's your body's way of saying, pay attention. And here's the truth. Real intuition doesn't make you panic. It calms you, it anchors you, it makes you breathe deeper. The silent oracle is not a fortune teller. It doesn't shout, it simply knows. Even when the world disagrees, even when no one understands. And when you begin to live from this place, you will appear different to others. You are no longer easy to manipulate. You no longer follow old scripts. You no longer beg for approval. You no longer ask, "What do they think of me?" Instead, you ask, "Does my soul say yes to this?" That is freedom. You are no longer performing for the world. You are no longer seeking permission to exist. You're becoming what you were always meant to be, an oracle of your own life. No preaching, no convincing, just living and letting your energy speak louder than words. When you trust this voice, you no longer need a map, because you are the compass. You are guided by a light no one can take from you. And perhaps the greatest question of all is this: are you ready to let this voice lead you home? Now, as you look back on your journey, you barely recognize the woman you once were, the one who always nodded, the one who always understood, the one who kept peace for everyone except herself. She has walked through the corridor of shadows. She has shed the old skin. She has sat in silence long enough to hear the truth within. And now she is no longer the wounded empath, no longer the exhausted pleaser. She is something else. She is a healer. And here's the truth. You don't have to do something extraordinary to become one. You don't need to be a therapist. You don't need to run a meditation center. You don't need to awaken anyone. Your presence, when it is true, is the torch. When you dare to say no without guilt. When you are kind but boundaried. When you slow down, breathe deeply, and choose truth over comfort, you shine. Quietly, effortlessly, without performance. And the world needs that. Because there are still so many people who are exhausted, who are still playing roles, who still believe they must be kind enough to disappear. They need to see someone like you live in truth and remain safe, radiant and unshaken. You are not healing only for yourself. You are healing so you can become a living flame, a doorway, a mirror that no longer bends under the weight of other people's expectations. And when you live this way, soul after soul will find you. Not because you chase them, not because you convince them, but because you radiate the frequency of truth, and truth has its own gravity. This is the moment you stop searching for the ones who understand you and begin to understand yourself first. And then a community is born. Not one built on teaching or preaching, but on recognition, on presence, on the kind of silence that says, "I see you, I know you, you're home." One day someone will come to you and whisper, "I don't know why, but I feel lighter around you." You didn't even have to say anything, just being here feels like healing. And you will smile, because you will know it's not magic, it's not a trick. It's the natural result of what happens when you stop abandoning yourself and return to your wholeness. Real healing was never about finding the perfect method or the right guru. It was always about this: when you stop running from yourself. When you can sit in a room alone, not afraid, not angry, not starving for someone to fill the silence, but simply present. This is where it all begins again. Not from pain, not from wounds, but from the light that has been rekindled, a flame that cannot be extinguished. You are no longer a survivor. You are the torchbearer, the one who carries the light for yourself and for those who are still finding their way. And if you're hearing these words, know this: you are not alone. There are thousands, millions just like you, awakening, returning to their true selves, learning to love without losing themselves. And if this has touched something deep in you, leave a sign, a comment, a share, a simple subscribe, not for me, but for you, as your way of saying, yes, it's time. I am ready to live true. You are the light. You don't have to prove it. Just shine and the world will come.